Heat and DSM-5, general pathogenesis, general elemental analysis, part 2. Rather, I should say 02. Part 1 or 01 was based upon general causality model. Today we'll take the part of pathogenesis after general causality model, which is application of elementals to the conceptualization of psychopathology. So this is how the pathogenesis operates in the heat system. The first two are very common to what we do in general as a convention. From 3.3 to 3.7, what heat system does is different from our convention. Last time we saw 3.3 event causation. Today we'll take a look at 3.4 and if time permits 3.5. 3.4 pertains to the general elemental analysis. So we divide, or rather we have 8 categories of elementals in the heat system, and these categories are fundamental elementals, which are more or less structural elementals, motivational elementals, which are more or less based upon the core desire operating in each chakra, process elementals, how the psychic process operates in terms of energy, affinity and desire, faculty elementals, the cognitive elementals which are used in the psychic process, characteristic elementals which facilitate and inform as catalysts the psychic process. The psychic process involves use of process elementals which are more or less related to desire, energy and affinity, and faculty elementals which are by and large cognitive elementals. And they are catalysts. The characteristic elementals are catalysts. And using the three, the psychic process operates, and then the result of the psychic process, whatever that be, success or failure, results in what we call resultant elementals. From that, over a period of time, accumulating elementals create templates, complexes, long-term beliefs, core beliefs, and so on. And then at last, we have freedom elementals, which can help us to overcome the accumulating elementals which are causing trouble. Let us go in details of each. The fundamental elementals are the 10 which are on the screen. The psychic or the evolving soul, covered by the layer of karma, then by the yin and yang, the feminine and the masculine, then the 5 bodies, then the chakras which coordinate the 5 bodies and are meeting point of the 5 bodies, and then using life energy and psychic processes, using other elementals, this 1.1 to 1.5, they create the non-personal unconscious, and then using experience the personal unconscious, and ego emerges over a period of time, very early in life of course, and then we have awareness and feel which are inborn. Some part of the ego, the systemic ego, is inborn, the coordinating ego emerges, and the social ego forms over a much longer period of time. So the ego is conceptualized in 3 parts: the system ego, the coordinating ego, and the social ego. Now the motivational elementals, they are 18, and from 11 to 18, let me say, change it a bit. This is a much more accurate classification, bifurcation. 3.4.2.1 to 2.10 are involved in the psychopathological process associated with each of the chakra. So when we are looking at the PSD problem, we are looking essentially at 2.1 and 2.2. When we are looking at the drive frustration problem, we are looking at 2.3, 2.4. When we are looking at problem of inferiority, helplessness, and rage, we are looking at 2.5. When we are looking at attachment issues, we are looking at 2.6. When we are looking at expression, we are looking at 2.7 and 2.9. And when we are looking at bipolarity, or catatonia, one of the important elements is 2.8. 2.10 and 11, they become important in some specific instances. If you are using cognitive therapies, 2.10 becomes very important. If we are using Bionian concepts of the love of knowledge and the hate of knowledge, the opposite of knowledge minus K, then knowledge becomes very important. And if you are using concepts by Meltzer or by deeper aspects of Beyond, aesthetics comes into play. And aesthetics here is not from an artistic standpoint, it is aesthetics as it plays out in psychopathology. So 2.1 to 2.11 are most pervasively involved in the process of psychopathology. 2.12 to 18 would be involved in few cases rather than most. Process elementals will be involved 3.1 to 3.18 in practically every psychopathology, but the significance will be higher if you are using the hydraulic model. Faculty elementals will be involved by omission or commission in practically every psychopathology. Characteristic elements or the opposites of them, because they are on a continuum: hope to hopelessness, positivity to negativity, cheerfulness to depressiveness. So the natural stable value of these variables is very important in interpretation of experiences. And they govern in a way how much affect is generated, especially negative affect, and then results into pathology. Resultant elementals are important because as a result of a traumatic experience, especially 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 6.2 and 6.3 will be very common. 6.8, 6.9, 6.10, very common. If you are dealing with narcissism, 6.11, 6.12 will be very important. If you are dealing with attachment issues, 6.6 will be very important. And as a result of experience, these resultant elementals take some value. And if they take a very high value, they become refractive to change and become practically timeless unless we consciously work upon them. And they lead to pathological behavior. So we have the psychic process, resultant elementals, and they, in the long run, they result in the accumulating elementals, the long-term schemas, the long-term complexes, long-term habits, long-term reflexes, and so on. Very important element here is the tragic holding zone, which is very important in case of personality disorders or any long-term chronic sickness. Freedom elementals are those elementals which are free from the karmic thing, which are based upon free will, spontaneity. At times, grace happens. At times, the conscious goodwill of somebody works. And these are the elementals which are free from the inevitably flowing scientific processes, even born out of karma. So let's apply these elementals to the 17 chapters of DSM. These are the first 9, and these are the remaining chapters. 17 chapters of DSM. Out of all chapters, these 17 are the ones where psychotherapy can contribute substantially. The rest of the chapters are bio-heavy, which I have put aside. So let us look at the first chapter or the second chapter in DSM section 2. But first chapter for us, schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. Now, based upon the school that we choose and the case that we have, different elementals will be at play. Let us say you have delusion of persecution. If you use Freudian conceptualization, you will have to take recourse to repressed homosexuality, and that would mean the karmic element and the yin and yang will be very important. And the element of guilt and shame will be very important. So let's look at the elementals. So if you look at delusion of persecution, the karmic element will be very strong, significant. Yin yang will be very significant. The personal unconscious dynamics will be very significant. From motivational side, fear, anger, 2.1, 2.2, 2.4 will be most significant motivational elementals. In process elementals, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.7, 3.10, 11, 12, 13, 14 will be very important. And of course, 17 will be a natural consequence of it. 18, we know the defenses which are used. Imagination 4.2 will be very important. All the three naturally, if they are on the positive side, the probability of pathology goes down. 6.3 from this list, 6.10, 6.9, and 6.12. 6.9, 6.10, 6.12, and 6.3. They will be the most important of elementals. Here it depends upon whether you are following CBT or psychoanalysis. Based upon it, you can pick the variables or the type of variables which you believe are in the unconscious. If you look psychoanalytically, we are looking at 7.3. (8.1) is significant but overtaken. Rest of them are not significant. In fact, none of the freedom elementals really is significant in this part. Say bipolar and related disorders, second one. It is heavily karmic, that will be true. 1.2 will be true for practically all disorders. 1.3 also often is true. There is a strong bisexual component often found in bipolarity. And in terms of 1.5, the top chakra above the Agnya chakra and the root chakra, the two of them are very important. Rest of the chakras are secondary for this. Rather, the weakness of rest of the chakras in between leads to this bipolarity, where the two poles, the bottom chakra and the top chakra, are very strong, and the in-between chakras are very weak. Weak meaning ego is not able to channelize most of the energy from falling either into the bottom chakra or rising to the top chakra in between the chakras. So ego is not able to distribute. So when I say chakras in between are weak, meaning they are not taking up as much energy as they can, and therefore it's going to the two poles. The motivational elementals in the bipolarity: 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. 2.6 is always important in healing, but may not be so in causality, or it may be 2.6 is important. So we see 2.1, 2.2, 2.8. 2.8 is very important, and 2.12. So here this becomes important as an exception. 3.4 is very important. It's very high. 3.5, 3.5 also is very important. 3.14 is very important. And 3.11 is always important, because if 3.11 is well done, chances of pathology emerging are lower. The imagination is very high but unconscious. This is usually the cheerful side, and positivity can be very high in patients of bipolarity, where they appear to be very soft and ethereal. But if they appear to be very tough and strong, then the positivity and cheerfulness are on the negative side. They have high negativity and high depressiveness. So hope is usually low, but positivity and cheerfulness, you have two categories of bipolars: the bright ones and the heavy ones. The heavy ones have a lot of negativity and depressiveness. The bright ones or the light ones, they have the high positivity and cheerfulness. Six point 10, 6.12 are very important resultant elementals, which have accumulated over a period of time in bipolar category. 6.5 is often found. 6.9 is often found. 6.2 is almost universal. It will be found everywhere. 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.9 are very important. 7.10 is very important because often the inadequate attachments is often a reason for bipolarity. Loss of attachment brings the down cycle, lower cycle, and gain of attachment brings the upper cycle. 8.1, Let me say, if you are dealing with the beginning part of healing process in bipolarity, none of them is important. Let's look at depressive disorders. Number 3. The karmic body will be important. In the chakras, the bottom chakra will be important, the heart chakra will be important. More often than not, the personal conscious will be at work. From motivational elementals, 2.1, 2.2, 2.8, 2.9 will be most important. In terms of process elementals, if you go by the hydraulic model, 3.1 till 3.18 will be important. But if you don't go by the hydraulic model, then other elementals will have to be brought in, like internalization of a good object, growth by knowledge, and so on. Here, 4.1 is very important. 4.2 is important from therapy point of view, but largely unconscious. When we look at the depressive part, all the three will be on the other side. There will be more of hopelessness, negativity, and depressiveness. 6.2, 6.3, 6.5, 6.7, 6.10, occasionally 6.9, they are most important. 7.1, 7.3, 7.2, of course, and 7.9 are very important. 7.10, because often it leads to depression in the first place. Later part of the healing process, 8.1 is important. Earlier part, there's little 8.1 can do. But 8.1 and 8.2, if we can increase, 8.4 if we can enhance, adds to the healing process. Anxiety disorders. Karmic part will be important. 5 bodies will be important. The personal unconscious will be very important. Occasionally non-person also. So 1.6, 1.7, 1.6, 1.2. Here 2.1 will be most important. Often 2.2 is covered up by 2.1. 2.4 may be at play. 2.5 always will be at play. 2.6 gain or loss of attachment object always can be at play. 2.7, 2.8, 2.9 less important. 2.10 is more important. 2.12 to 18 insignificant. In this process, the core is 3.14, 3.10 and 3.14. Knowledge is important, but often weak, is not able to quench anxiety. This is on the negative side, of course, hopelessness, negativity, and depressiveness. 6.2, 6.3, 6.9, and often involving 6.10 and 6.12. 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.6 in case of phobias, 7.9 and are important. 7.11 occasionally. 7.10 is, of 8.1 is something we have to focus upon to free it from the grip of anxiety. The rest of them are not important. Say obsessive compulsive and related disorders. Let's look at the elementals. One point two, 1.3, 1.5, 1.7, rarely 1.6 will be important. 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. They are the important ones. 3.10, 3.14, 3.18. 4.1 is very important here. 4.2 also where service of fantasy, it requires interpretation. They will be in the middle or just on the other side of the middle towards the opposite of it. I'm referring to the situation of the three variables on the continuum in case of obsessions, obsessive compulsive disorders. Six point one, of course, is not there. In most psychopathology, it's not there. Unless you are dealing with extreme regression in case of what I call happy psychosis, where the excess of 6.1 becomes a problem. Six point 9, 6.10, 6.12 become very important. 6.2, of course, is important. 7.1, 7.2, 0.3, 7.6, 7.10, and 7.11 also. All the five are impaired or not present. So we can go on with this, which elementals are important in different disorders. And based upon those elementals, we can think about how to heal those elementals or what to do about them. Because now we are thinking in more elemental terms. And we can use both conventional as well as holistic healing tools to address the elementals which are on the hyper side or hypo side, not in the optimum range. Thank you.